Alright guys, welcome to Talk GCSE and A-Levels, and welcome to this video. Let's talk about monopsony, a really important concept for EdXL A-Levels, and especially when you're analysing labour markets. Monopsony is basically a market where there is only one major buyer of labour and inputs. So instead of having lots of firms competing to hire them, there's basically one dominant employer. Because of this, the employer has wage setting power. Think of it the opposite of monopoly. The monopoly is one seller, while monopsony is one buyer. So a classic example might be a large employer in a small town like a big factory or a hospital that only employs most of the local workforce. Now, because workers have few alternative employers, the firm can often pay wages lower than competitive equilibrium wage. So the key features that you need to remember is one dominant buyer of labour, wage setting power, wages lower than competitive labour market, and lower employment than the socially efficient level. This creates a labour market failure, which is why economists and policymakers cares about it. So what's the impact on monopsony power? Let's break it down. First, the workers. Workers are usually the biggest losers in monopsony because the employer has wage setting power and workers may be less paid than marginal revenue product. This means they are effectively being exploited in economic terms. Employment can be lower than the competitive level, meaning fewer jobs are created. Second, if we talk about suppliers, if monopsony power exists in product markets or input markets, suppliers may also receive lower prices for their goods and services. Large supermarkets often discussed in this context because they have a strong buyer power over farmers and producers. Finally, we talk about consumers. The impact on consumers can be mixed. In some cases, if firms face a lower labour cost, they might pass some of those savings on to consumers through lower prices. However, if monopsony power reduces employment, wages, and overall economic activity, it can also reduce the demand in the economy, which isn't ideal in the long run. So how can government deal with monopsony power? There are a few key solutions you should know about for exams. First is trade unions. Trade unions increase the bargaining power of workers by negotiating collectively, and workers can push wages closer to competitive equilibrium, reducing monopsony exploitation. Second is the minimum wage. Interestingly, the monopsony labour market, a minimum wage can actually increase employment, not reduce it. That's because it stops the firms from setting wages too low and encourage them to hire more workers, up to the point where wages equal marginal revenue product. It's really important for an evaluation point in monopsony at Excel. Third thing that we can talk about is government intervention. Government might regulate labour markets, enforce employment rights, and encourage competition between employers in the region. However, every policy has trade-offs. So minimum wages set too high could increase unemployment. Trade unions might reduce labour market flexibility. Government regulation could increase business cost. So strong evaluation is always about weighing up benefits and drawbacks. If you're answering a 25 marker on monopsony, structure is everything. Start with a clear definition. Define monopsony as a labour market with a single dominant buyer of labour with wage setting power. Then move on to analysis. You might explain how monopsony leads to lower wages, why employment may be below the competitive level, and the concept of labour exploitation. Use of diagram in the labour market is really important for EdXL because it helps you show deeper understanding. Next comes the evaluation, which is where top marks come from. You could evaluate things like effectiveness of minimum wages, role of trade unions, difference between short run, long run, and whether monopsony actually exists in the long. And finally, always end up with a balanced judgment. For example, you might conclude, while monopsony can reduce wages and employment, appropriate government intervention, such as carefully set minimum wage, can improve labour market outcomes. Now, if you combine clear diagrams, strong chain of reasoning, and balanced evaluation, you're putting yourself to a really strong position for really high marks. And if you found this video useful, please make sure to save it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. It allows me to make more videos that can help you with your GCSEs and A-levels. Thank you guys.